I'm Alec Baldwin, and you're listening to Marketing Trends and the Leads Art Week.
In January, Simon Harrison accepted his new role as Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at Avaya. Now, a few months into the new position, the world needs his company more than ever. On this episode of Marketing Trends, Simon sits down to discuss how Avaya is changing the way we experience and interact with our devices, how his company is helping others make decisions more efficiently, and why simply delighting a customer is never the path you want to pursue. Enjoy this episode. Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing.
Here is your host, Ian Faison.
Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Ian Faison, host of Marketing Trends. And today we are joined by a special guest. Simon, what's going on?
Everything's really quite interesting, sir. It's a different world we're in, obviously, at the moment, but generally speaking, things are going on pretty well.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny now that everything, obviously, with COVID and everything changes seemingly by the hour. But it makes you appreciate the small things that you have. And, we're excited to talk about marketing because it's what we do. And we're going to get into a bunch of your background, some time as an analyst, and your current role as CMO of Avaya. So let's get into it. How did you get started in marketing in the first place?
Well, I guess being honest about my career, I've always had a passion for technology. I was probably a techie at heart way back when, early in my career, but it led to a passion for leading in terms of product management, product marketing. Because I guess when you're consulting on things from a technical perspective, you inadvertently end up at a point where you start thinking, hold on, we could be doing things better here. There's got to be a better way. The technology could be doing more for us. And in following that path, I found myself even more passionate about telling people what the true value of technology was. And so it was a reasonably kind of natural progression for me to find myself genuinely passionate about sharing what I think is the true value of technology on as many stages as I could across the world, and in as many ways as I could. Whether it's the more tactical digital front of house, such as websites and sharing content in those ways, or those more, for me, exciting ways of getting in front of people and talking to them. So I think it was a fait accompli that I'd end up where I am, and so that's how I'm a marketeer. That's how I've ended up in this kind of role.
That's a great description. I may need to start using that. Loving technology and then trying to figure out how to explain it to people. It's a great way of looking at things. Well, flash forward to today. You are the CMO of Avaya. Why were you so excited about joining this role?
Well, it's interesting. If you reflect on my previous role as an analyst, I was very clear on what most vendors are doing in the world around demonstrating the value of their technology. I used to get a lot of inquiries and have a lot of discussions with pretty significant organizations about the ways in which that they were trying to help their end user customers to realize the value of their technology, marketing it ultimately. And so I was in, I guess, the balance of learning lots about the technology, what it was capable of, and then more on how companies were struggling to get that value across. And I realized when it came to Avaya, it was probably doing the best job of being the best kept secret in the business. It really was, I thought, demonstrating some rather unique characteristics in terms of the way that it was providing product and the services and the technology ecosystem and the partner ecosystem, and just wasn't, I thought, perhaps doing a good enough job, or there was an opportunity to be doing better in terms of making sure the world could know more about that. And I was advising the company quite a lot. I was advising on how to fix it, how to change things, and built up quite a relationship over a good couple of years of offering support and trying to get the company to do more, to do better out there. And I realized that actually that passion that I could no longer suppress around marketing was something that I could surface and provide value in leading for Avaya. And that's how I ended up joining. It is a extremely different company. And I can say that having been an analyst and knowing the market pretty well. And so I'm keen to be making sure that in this role, we're surfacing that. We're getting Avaya out of its own way, as it were, some might say. So that's how I've found myself in the role.
I love that you went from analyst to CMO, because it's such an interesting jump. And we've talked to some folks, some analysts on the show. And it is one of those interesting situations where you're seeing so much of what's going on. I'm curious, like you said that Avaya has changed over the years and kind of gone through the start of maybe a transformation of sorts. Like, why do you think the problem that you all are solving is more important than ever, and this company is poised to continue to innovate and push that pace?
There's two key reasons, actually. Firstly, in terms of the portfolio, it is far broader, far deeper than people realize. And when you look at the typical contact center space and the unified communications space, you look at the usual vendors in those spaces, and you start to compare using a narrow lens. Avaya will surface as a reasonably a leader in these spaces. But when you look at Avaya far more broadly, when you look at Avaya considering the evolved experience economy and how that's changed, the way that we use smart devices in our everyday life, the way that the typical 9 to 5 planned working day is not the normal anymore. And obviously COVID-19 has kind of brought that to the forefront. We have to be very agile. We have to be very reactive in a almost planned way, which seems like somewhat of a contradiction, but it is a way of working that we have to be thinking about empowering with this technology. When you look at things through a broader lens, you realize how much more Avaya is doing. And so, secondly, as I said, the two key reasons, the challenge that Avaya's had around marketing that value has been probably more difficult than ever because of that length and breadth, or more difficult than perhaps others that are just narrowly focusing on marketing a simple contact center product, or narrowly focusing marketing on a unified communications product. So it creates more of a problem in terms of getting that value out. And I've seen considerable potential to do something with that. I've got lots of experience around helping people to realize the value of technology, and in a more connected way. That was one of the things that I did at Gartner. I was actually in a role where I was helping to surface the value of the different technologies across quite a few different agendas, and connecting the dots so that people could see that broader value. So it kind of married quite well to the experiences I'd had. And I'm so passionate about marketing. I really have found it fascinating that people can have almost perfect solutions, but can sit at a certain revenue rate for far too long because they just don't market it well enough. The perception of the company is all about how well marketing is doing its job, really. So that's why I'm at Avaya.
Yeah. And, the pace of innovation changes so quickly in technology that it's easy to kind of fall into the trap, I think, of like the new shiny object thing. And at the end of the day, it's like there is a vast majority of people who want a level of consistency to their business processes. They want a consistency of customer experience. They want a consistency, and they don't want to just rip out the old to put in the new, over and over and over again. Although that's going to happen. But, to be, like you mentioned, with a portfolio of products and with, and selling into, a variety of different places in the enterprise, potentially, it's a hard challenge for marketers, to your point. Like, that's not an easy thing. There's not really a long history of technology companies with large portfolios that you have to draw off. It's not a 50-year industry. It's not a 100-year industry. So it is new. And then also on top of that, marketing is changing faster than ever as well. So I think you're, it's a savvy kind of awareness on your part to see that, perhaps there's, and it's not just at Avaya, but in any company for our listeners who are trying to kind of, organize a little bit of transformation around their own company, that there's opportunities to just do things a little better. I'm curious. So what was your approach? Like, as you're coming into the role, what are the things that you wanted to focus on? I don't want to say it necessarily your playbook here, but what were some of the things the plays that you were excited to run?
I mean, the marketing team, the marketing engine is really quite well set up. Strong marketing leadership within the organization, within the department. And they get those tactical things done, let's call them that, pretty damn well. When it comes to lead generation activities and all of the typical things that we worry about in terms of making sure that we've got the sales guys fed and everyone is happy to see those quarters, those quarter ends being very positive. I think there was a few things that I thought were kind of quick wins or low hanging fruit. And that was around surfacing value by virtue of just sharing more with the world about how some of their peers, so customers out there that have similar organizations to those that we've helped, sharing some of the stories, some of the ways in which we've done quite groundbreaking or transformational things. And so we've had a sharp focus more on the storytelling, more on the identifying those that are happy to be quoted and provide real words around the things we've done, and just being quite forwards in and quite, I guess, adding quite a lot of focus on making sure that when it comes to whatever touch point you're in the business, whether you're in sales, service, whatever part of the business you're in, you're thinking about making sure that we can surface the value we create for others to learn about. So then, if new customers can see, they've got something they can touch, feel, and see that describes value that's been derived by someone that's just like them, it becomes so much easier to not only decide on the right partner like Avaya, but also to know the questions to ask and how to ask them around the kind of technology that they want to invest in too, of course. And the key thing is that we live in a world of, the sort of application leaders, CIOs, CTOs, they're trying to orchestrate a symphony of platforms and ecosystems, myriad of technologies based on consumption style, on-premise technology, hosted technology, pure SaaS-based. They've got, perhaps DevOps teams. They've got out of the shadow IT. They've got so many different things to worry about. Ours is to make sure that, again, through the storytelling, through the demonstrating the value of the length and breadth of our portfolio and our technology ecosystem and our partner ecosystem, how we can actually address more of the problem for them, or address more of the ambitions for them across their enterprise. Empathizing with the fact that they are, orchestrating what is a symphony that they want to keep continuing to play well, but they've got to change a lot of the instruments out, and they've got lots of old, they've got lots of new, and they're trying to make it all work really well together.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of the fact that everybody's customers are going through some type of transformation. I mean, even probably down to, CPG. The transformation is that, I don't know, I want, silkier hair or something like that. So I need a new hair product. But in the enterprise, what we're talking about, this digital transformation that takes literally years and potentially decades. Like the amount of, I think, per Avaya stats, that there's, I think 28% of all telephony users will be cloud by 2021, according to Gartner. I mean, you look at like that number, and I mean, I'm astonished that it's not higher, right? But there is so much going on in the face of digital transformation. I mean, look at what is happening right now with COVID, with everybody working from home and this massive explosion of a need for digital tools, so that people can be anywhere. And I mean, there is so much in this marketplace. And so I'm curious, as a marketer that is trying to figure out how to, be the elixir in this, in this time of digital transformation, to be that trusted advisor to CTOs and CIOs, or even, whoever is buying. How do you do that? How do you build trust with those people, and so you can have those conversations and say, like, hey, look at the portfolio that we have. Like, we can be your solution on how to do this.
Well, it's a great question. And the way that I find myself naturally responding to that is to demonstrate really strong thought leadership, be a trusted advisor in terms of the way that their market is going, the way the landscape is shifting or evolving, given the specific area of technology interest, and so forth. Because what I find fascinating is there's still an awful lot of product brochure, product-based marketing that doesn't demonstrate enough of the value. And so I actually sort of target surprising people. How am I going to surprise the people as part of this conversation? How am I going to share something through a distribution, or as part of our digital front of house, or as part of a campaign, or whatever it might be, that offers something that the end user customer, or perhaps a partner, says, "Wow, I never thought about that." And I've actually found that, again, Avaya has provided perhaps one of the best platforms to do that. Give you an example, looking at the evolved experience economy, we've talked an awful lot over recent years about Omni Channel and this voice and digital channel blending. And when you look at the way that we are using these different devices in our world, 2010 was the mobile era, right? There's an app for that. Now we're looking at natural language understanding, home devices, haptic responses in our watches, touch gestures in cars, all kinds of ways to interact with devices supporting people getting things done, and then those different modalities, speech, monitoring, eye recognition. Snapchat has made virtual and augmented reality an everyday thing. And so when you start looking at the world through what I think is a real world perspective of the experiences that are going on, how people are using these to, for example, get connected to a contact center, does omnichannel cover it? Does it do enough to support voice and digital channel engagements? My perspective is actually it doesn't. It's a great solution for what was a previous problem. And so there's a good example there, and a great opportunity from an Avaya perspective for me to say, guys, let me surprise you here with a few things you probably haven't thought about. And then, by the way, the length and breadth of the Avaya portfolio with that technology ecosystem wrap and partner ecosystem wrap positions us to, you can take our hand, and we'll lead by example and help you address what is this probably, I would argue, is a challenge that's crept up on us like a toad sat in boiling water. It's something that no one is kind of talking about or thinking about. So that's one of the key things that I'm often looking for. I'm looking for the ways to sort of show thought leadership, show how things have changed quite dramatically, surface that in tangible terms that people can understand, and then marry that to the sort of value that we can create. And it's proving to be quite a powerful way to market what we do.
I'm curious, how do you look at the difference between brand marketing and some of your product marketing? Because you have such a large portfolio, and you also have a ton of partners, and we can maybe get into that in a little bit. Avaya has an extremely strong like brand awareness, but maybe not for the reasons that you might want folks to think about. Maybe not for a certain new product, or maybe not maybe it's just for their phone or whatever it is. So I'm curious, like, how do you think about positioning kind of that messaging and to the different products with kind of the overall brand strategy?
It's a great question. I mean, the as you know, Avaya is pretty well known in the market, in particular around context engineering value communications, has been a leader for many years. In terms of the brand, I'm rather relentlessly focused on, again, those shifting landscapes and how we're making sure that we are offering value from a brand perspective, given those shifting sands. So, give you an example. Workstream collaboration is the evolved unified communications landscape. Teams, hubs, byte-based communication, and productivity. And there's lots of other vendors that are not typically compared when you look at workstream collaboration versus unified communications. And so I'm making sure that from a brand perspective, our SEM strategy, our digital front of house, how we present products and solutions, and what we talk about in terms of solutions, is surfacing the right level of value from here's how you should think about Avaya and how it can help you overarching as a company. Length and breadth in terms of geography. I have marketing people in many countries across the world, all providing that local support in terms of the brand as well. You're making sure that it is contextually right for the different types of buyers across geographies. In terms of product marketing, I'm very, I guess I'm a bit more precise around the talk tracks. The way that the messaging is used to get what we need to get across, that dovetails into what we're trying to achieve from a brand perspective. It's not easy, especially when you've got a lot of people that have, lots of experience and lots of value that they can add. You're trying to surface or take advantage of that, but make sure that they are still on track, or making sure that they're saying things in a way that is going to support, prop up the brand in the right ways, but show that future-proof perspective, demonstrate that thought leadership, and of course support what I think is this evolution in the marketplace around experiences. And it is quite I find myself getting quite hands-on. I find myself really getting into those meetings and supporting the senior team members in fashioning what are the most impactful ways to demonstrate the value of products and to support sales enablement. It's where I spend a reasonable balance of my time, actually.
Yeah. So can you go into that a little bit more? Because that is one of the things that I think, perhaps it's the first 90-day CMO, checklist here is really get your hands around sales enablement, so specifically in the enterprise and with technology, because it's such a critical motion for, to win the internal stakeholders. Like, hey, let's make sure sales is happy, or make sure we know what is happening with sales so that we can make them happy. So I am curious, like, how did you look at approaching that?
Well, I had a little bit of an ace in the hole, in so much as my Gartner experience was helpful. I had great relationships with the senior sales leadership, the theatre leaders for Avaya, being quite frank, they had already seen the value that I'd been surfacing or offering to support what they were trying to achieve as a research leader in the world, and so I was able to quite candidly put out all hands. We're going to have a proper session, go through everything that you probably want to know about or will be useful to know about in terms of the trends of what's going on in the space, where it's headed. I wrote a lot of the research around the futures for Gartner, and that was obviously well researched with lots of support from my colleagues. Everything that Gartner is done with lots of eyes on a note. And so I was able to say, look, let's make sense of all the things we've been doing. That sits here, and this is how much value it creates. And if we look at the world through this lens, and we think about the research that we've got as a reference, as well as many other things, this is where we want to be. And it added credence. It meant that it was a reasonably easy sell, if you like, to demonstrate how we could be doing things to help support the company going through this tremendous transition of being a very relevant, SaaS-based, cloud application ecosystem vendor. And so that meant then, the discussions around specific products and what we were doing were easier to have. It was just a question of, let's reflect on some of the things we've been talking about in terms of the trends, and are we on point? Have we ticked off enough on the list? Okay, we must be on the right track, and we could surface more of the value that I think is important to recognize in these products already, but make sure that we were not missing a trick around the additional value, the thing and the way that can connect to all kinds of other value for our customers. Because I'm obsessed when it comes to the products, and in fact, in most things, I'll always do the what's in it for me test and the so what test. I do this all the time, probably drives people mad with testing even things as simple as a title, right through to the deep and meaningful insights or the depths of what a product can actually do for an organization. It's always about making sure that it's improving the customer value chain, it's improving the employee value chain, it's making the difference for that partner. It's really doing the things that we need it to do in a wonderful way. So sorry, slightly long-winded answer there, but leveraging my support from my analyst background made things a little easier in that regard, I would say, around product marketing.
I actually wanted to go into that a little further too, because you don't have a ton of folks that go, for lack of a better term, kind of like back in-house, straight into the CMO role after being an analyst. And I think it's just such an interesting experience because you were right there looking at the market and then, right into a leader. I'm curious. So what were some of the, advantages of that? And also like for our, CMO and marketing leader guests who don't have that, how can they approximate it? How can they, maybe they're sick of talking to analysts. Maybe they love talking to their analysts. I suppose it depends on who they're talking to, as do all things in life. But I'm curious, yes. Like what are some of those things that they can pull from the analyst to really get a sense of to have an advantage in the space that it feels like you kind of feel like that was helpful for you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting shift, isn't it? I mean, I found myself really enjoying the kind of challenges presented to me by pretty significant organizations and quite senior leaders in those organizations around getting the value out. And I did work with a number of vendors with some challenges around almost doing everything right, but just not seeing the sort of transformation from their marketing efforts, and suggesting things, becoming almost like a sort of virtual member of the team, and working with them on a regular cadence, and actually them suddenly seeing results, seeing change, seeing the kind of improvements that they wanted to see. And I think it was largely driven from being able to make sense of what it is that people wanted to buy, clearly, in a way where it was as effortless to consume as possible. I'm a big fan of effortless over delighting. I don't think delighting works. I think it's a misnomer, in so much as if you delight a customer, you just set the new bar and then you've got to now raise it again and you keep chasing this thing. If you focus on effortless, you make it as effortless to consume from an information architecture perspective so let's think about a website, for example. So obviously information architected in a way where you're surfacing the value that you think is most relevant to that customer based on how you've got them there in the order you want to get them to view the information such that it suits what you're trying to achieve, but it makes them feel like they've got what they needed. This is quite a complex. It's not an art. It is a science, but making sure that you are making it as effortless as possible from their perspective. Obviously, it's rule number one is outside in. So combining I guess my understanding with what I thought was that the key value that people were trying to derive from these investments in technology in particular, given where I was as an analyst, with working with marketeers to make sure that they were offering that value in the most effortless to consume ways, just created the kind of results that these leaders wanted to see, or they started to realize. Effortless is key, right? And effortless is not this mythical thing. You can do it in really quite tactical ways. You can, if you offer less choices, it becomes effortless. More consistency becomes effortless. I mean, giving an example, slightly different way of looking at it, but if you go for a coffee anywhere in the world, might find yourself in a Starbucks just because you know what you're going to get, and consistency equals effortless. One of the ones that I'm quite passionate about is reversible. If you can buy a product and you can take it home, you can mess about with it, fiddle with the settings, do whatever you like with it, and then take it back and go, I don't want it, or no questions asked, I think you're more likely to buy that product.
That's a great point.
If you could book a flight and there's no chance of any kind of penalties if you cancel it, or no matter what you do, you're more likely to book that flight. So there's really sort of quite tactical ways to introduce effortless, and I think effortless is the mantra that I would sort of be living by, and helping marketers in particular to surface their value so that it married well to what people were trying to buy, and they saw the results from that.
I mean, you buried the lead here. I love that. It's a great mantra, because so much of what is going on right now, I think, is focusing on that customer-centric journey. It's focusing on building a journey for the customer that is that lasts for years and years and years. It's not about trying to shove people into acquisition. It's about having the long game. And with that, kind of, I would say that your effortless kind of piece there is helping them make a buying decision that limits their downside, but has, all of the upside. And that's, I think, it's a double-edged sword, because if your product stinks, then they get in and then they can quit you really easily. And that's what a lot of, startups have seen, is like, man, we have this great, customer acquisition funnel, and we have this down to a science, and they raise a bunch of money to realize that nobody keeps their solution for longer than a year because it doesn't really solve the need or whatever it is. It was just easy to buy. So how do you think about the customer centric journey, the post sale marketing, for lack of a better term?
I mean, it's important to make sure that your customers obviously know that you are a progressive, innovative entity, and you are never standing still. Again, one of the great things about Avaya is it's a high octane company. What happens in 24 hours is quite staggering. It really is doing wonderful things in hours, not days, and making sure that your customers are just getting a continuous kind of, but not in a too obtrusive way, but are getting that sense of enough touch to know that you are, again, demonstrating that thought leadership. You're showing that you are making a difference in the world. Is really important. I think you have to just. Obviously you think about when in traditional terms, think about managing people. If you can't see them, and are they doing anything? I don't know. I'm gonna have to check. Just applying that in terms of the way you keep customers. I don't want to use the term on the boil, but they feel as though they've invested in their partner that is going to take them on a journey themselves. It's going to continue to show the light and show the path. It wasn't just as part of that initial push to get them to buy the technology, invest in you as a vendor partner, but you continue to do that along the way. I think that it's important to be doing things like events. We have the Avaya Engage event. We do lots of events throughout the year. We support as part of technology partner events to make sure that you're present and you're accounted for at these events. It's important to make sure that you are as often as you can being engaged in as many customer type events. There's a number of ways in which I think that we do it from a reasonably tactical perspective. My passion is, as I say, to just make sure that you're continuously sharing something that says to the customer, you've made the right investment here, and we're going to keep we're going to keep you on the right path. We're going to take you on an extended journey of wonderful things. Just stick with it. The thing I have to add, though, is when it comes to worrying about customer stickiness and making sure that customers stay after they've completed their year-long subscription contract or whatever it might be, you can't really worry about that. You've got to be more relentlessly focused. If you're more relentlessly focused on the value, you don't need to worry about that. If all you think about is that outside in, what's in it for them, what can we share that shows more value in the customer value chain, the employee value chain, all those things that are really just important to those buyers, if it's a channel and so on, then they're going to hang around. They're going to stick with it. Again, if you are quite strictly focused, you have that pin-sharp focus on effortless as well. You make it easy for them to make that decision.
And this doesn't have to be Avaya focus, but are there particular campaigns that you've done in your career that have really stood out, or been one of your faves?
I would say overarching, marketing is emotive. If you can make people smile, if you can make people feel good, then you're going to see more success from your campaigns. So I can't really cite anything in particular, but I would say that in most of the work we do around campaigns, I'm always looking for that thread to make it feel something that people can relate to on more of a personal level. I guess that's pretty much marketing 101. It's not anything.
Yeah, but important to go back to the basics. It's a good reminder. Marketing is emotive. Yeah. We like to say on this show, marketing is remarkable, or it's meant to be remarkable, which means you actually have to talk about it with another person. It's not just enough to keep it to yourself. Like you're supposed to. It's supposed to make you go talk to your boss or talk to your colleague or talk to your spouse or talk to your kid or whatever it is. Like if you can generate those dialogues, then if you're generating dialogue, then you have a better chance to generate word of mouth. And I think that, if it's not emotive, then you're not gonna, if you're throwing it right down the plate, like people just, if it's too bland, if it's too boring, it's not going to be emotive. And I totally agree with you there. These times, with COVID and everything, is extremely stressful from a marketing perspective. Well, it's stressful to everyone, and it's a tragedy, and there's all sorts of stuff that is really cool to see people stepping up right and left and figuring out ways to help, figuring out ways to support those of us who are working, and support those who are not working. And I'm curious, just like both personally and professionally, like how do you navigate times of crisis, and is there any advice that you would give to fellow marketers to try to kind of move through the tough times?
Setting up tiger teams and setting up groups of people that can change the business as usual in terms of process and getting things done is kind of a key ingredient. I would argue we've somewhat of an advantage in that our Avaya Spaces technology is really designed around. I use the term war rooms, but you could set up any kind of purpose where it's in this instance it was how do we make sure that we can respond to this unprecedented kind of thing in the most effective ways, where we've incorporated hyper decision making, we've incorporated hierarchical, removed hierarchical kind of process. We've empowered ideas to be surfaced in this time zone and by someone that's just about to go to bed, and before they wake up, someone else has picked it up and has moved with it and changed process, has changed sales, has changed marketing, has changed legal, has done things that mean the outputs are all very, very, very fast, high paced and quick to support today's change, what's happened since yesterday. So I think the reality is you need to have those kind of teams, those dedicated to the response type teams set up, and you can make sure that you mix in the right ingredients in terms of people that can create assets and set up ways to get people to these assets and support sales and all those kinds of things. But you do need, and I'm going to suggest this, you do need the right kind of technology to make that a reality, and having a solution that enables everyone to just be part of the discussion for wherever they are in the world, to be able to be productive and contribute and share assets easily, be able to look back on previous discussions that have been tagged to the space. We call them a space, obviously, the name and nature of the app is spaces. Is that has actually been quite instrumental in how we've responded. I genuinely believe if we weren't supported by and I think that's really important to recognize. The true value of these kind of technologies has really been brought to the forefront by COVID-19 and not least demonstrated in how well we've been able to respond. We've done phenomenal things within a day, and we continue to do that using this high, as I say, high touch, hyper decision making, flattened. Anyone that can do something can chip in and get it done type, sort of teamwork, really.
I love that idea. And for those of our listeners who don't know, so Tiger teams were, I think the first popularization of this term was actually the Tiger team that was responsible for getting Apollo 13 back. So a little history there that basically, it's forming a small team around a specific problem that you need to solve. And no, that's great advice. I mean, it really is. It's a great idea because, you want people who are, engaged and 100% focused on solving a problem, and the problem is now. So I love that advice.
I think the other thing is you learn about your teams. You learn about, you learn so much more about how capable the team is and how wonderful certain people are. And actually it brings people together too. You become a more, supportive, if you're not already, but if you are already, great. But it creates more of a supportive group of people that really do wonderful things. I mean, I'll give you another extra layer of suggestion would be around encouraging people in this kind of scenario with COVID-19. We've been quite keen to encourage people to realize we're all trying to help each other. We want to help each other as much as we can, not just in terms of the work, but just to check in that they're okay. Are you okay? Are you guys okay with what what you're suddenly being tasked to do? Are you feeling good about this? And do some things that are slightly, my team decided they were going to do a sort of check-in, see everyone is okay, and share. We have a core theme around Avaya called Avaya Cares. We have one of those hashtag that we socialize, and we do lots of things around this Avaya Cares sort of theme. And so they decided that everyone in their native tongue, wherever they were in the world, whatever country they're in the world, to share Avaya Cares in the group and to say hello. So expanding on the Tiger team to get things done, don't forget to sort of use that thinking to make sure everyone feels like they're truly valued as part of this thing. And you can do that, again, using the kind of technology of our offers there.
Okay, let's get into our lightning round. These questions are fast and easy. Just like marketing with Salesforce, you can go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more about marketing on the world's #1 CRM. Check them out. We love Salesforce. They've sponsored every episode of this show for years now. We love Salesforce. Lightning round question. Simon, are you ready?
Okay, go for it.
Number 1, what app on your phone is the most fun?
I would say Spaces.
That's cheating, but I'll allow it.
Well, I think it's fun because I have a lot of fun with my team, especially around the fun get-togethers, as it were.
What is your hidden talent or passion?
I'm a second dan black belt in karate, which
Ooh.
I accomplished my second dan in Japan as well.
Do you have a favorite TV show or podcast that you're binging right now?
Big Bang Theory. I like to keep watching those. I wouldn't say I'm binging too much though, because the work effort to make sure that we're on top of things is taking a bit more time than usual.
Do you have a favorite thing to cook or eat?
I don't necessarily have a favorite specific item, but I do like to cook. I call it good fuel. I eat a lot of balanced sort of veg and decent, sort of. I love a bit of chicken and beef and things, and I like to just have a balanced, good mix of very flavoursome fruit and veg type meals. I guess if I was to name a favourite restaurant, it would be Wagamama. I don't know if that's a worldwide restaurant, although no, I think there's one in New York, but quite popular here in the UK. Is a Wagamama.
What is your best advice for a first-time CMO?
Really get to know your team. Trust in the fact that they are likely to be pretty extraordinary at what they do. And yours is to just make sure that you're helping to get things out of their way so that they can really do the things that make the difference in your organization.
Well, Simon, that's it. That's all we got. That's the show. Thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Any final thoughts? Any things to plug?
Just to sort of give you, add some credence to a lot of the things I've said around how Avaya is helping the world. We do an awful lot in terms of corporate social responsibility and philanthropy anyway. Save our shores and lots of things that make a difference in this world. With regards to COVID, we've enabled over 1 million remote contact center agents. And our Spaces collaboration technology has seen an increase of 1,800% over this the period by which we've seen this thing suddenly explode, helping people, helping teachers to run classes in Milan or wherever in the world, helping hospitals to support diagnosing patients remotely, helping patients to connect to their loved ones remotely. We've done, from a corporate social responsibility perspective, we've donated equipment to help with that. We've really quite profoundly made a difference in this world, and I'm extremely proud of it. We do have the technology to help, and we really are helping based on that. We can help, so we are.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And we'll be following along. Talk soon.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for having me.
Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. Discover marketing built on the world's #1 CRM, Salesforce. Put your customer at the center of every interaction. Automate engagement with each customer and build your marketing strategy around the entire customer journey. Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing.